Welcome to the Studio Chat podcast. My name is Barbara Thompson. Each week, I'll be bringing you a self-care expert or a message to help you to discover how to live your best life and understand your mind-body connection. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now, let the Studio Chat begin. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode. Here we are again, and today's a special episode as it's my 50th episode. So I've actually cracked the big 50, which is pretty cool. And today we're going to be talking about something really big, and it's something that I discovered probably 5 or so years ago in my studies. And it's something that you always learn. It's a continuous learning thing, and it's something called biohacking. I'm going to talk about this in detail today. But before I introduce my guest, Jackson, and we talk about the things we're going to talk about today, I'd love you guys just to have a think for a moment, is how you do life, what you eat, what you drink, the people you hang out with, the jobs you do, kind of surrounded by your values and beliefs and how you live your life. And sometimes when you're given new information, it can feel, a lot of people can resist to it and be like, oh, I don't like this. But during this podcast, there may be some things, a lot of new information is going to be shared with you. It's not a religion. It's not a cult. It is the truth. And that's why I've got Jackson on here today, because I want this information to be accessible to you. So you can make the decision about what you want to do about stuff. Because I do, we're like children. If someone says, oh, don't eat this, drink this, don't do this, do this, what are you going to do? You're going to do the opposite. I would, and I know that you would as well. So this podcast, especially this episode today, you're going to learn a lot of new things. Some of it you may have heard before. I don't want it to be overwhelming for you. I want you to pick 1 or 2 things at a time, try it out. And Jackson, I would love to hear from you and see how you go, but just do 1 or 2 things at a time, even one thing. See if it works for you. And then this podcast is always going to be here. So come back and check in and pick up something else. So because your body is for you, and the way you care for it, you're the only one that knows you. So that's just kind of what I want to put out today, because I see in my counseling clinic so much unhappiness. And unhappiness is related to all sorts of facets in our life. So on that, I'd love to welcome Jackson. Hi.
Hi, Barbara. Thanks for having me, and hello to all your listeners.
Yeah, it's really nice to have you here. Do you want to introduce yourself and just let us know who Jackson is and why you're here today?
Well, I'm here, Biohack Jack. So that's what they call me these days. And yeah, so my name's Jackson, guys. I'm really feel very blessed to be here, because it's one of my first guest appearances on one of these. I'm always ranting about this stuff all the time, and I've been told so often to get on a podcast so I can share this stuff. So I'm so happy to be here. And especially with such a good group, because I know what you do, Barbara, is amazing, and what you just said there, and it touches my history and my future really, really, really importantly, because a lot of my stuff started from mental health problems with myself and experiencing with other people. But anyway, basically, I'm a personal trainer, and I've been doing this for about 15 years. But initially, I live in Bondi in Sydney in Australia, so as you can imagine, the demographic here is quite vanity image based. So that's how my business started, and for a long way around, I ended up finding it wasn't really suiting me, just getting people skinny for the weekend boat parties, and and then dealing with them feeling crap the next week, and then being upset and annoyed that I'm constantly dealing with this cycle of it's never ending cycle, just hurting them, but I'm facilitating it by getting them looking good for the boat party and then dealing with them after the boat party. So I started moving more into this natural sort of holistic route about 5 years ago, just before all this stuff happened with COVID, which is so convenient. But how I got into this, before I tell you a bit about what I think biohacking really means, how I got into this was exactly what you were just sort of mentioning. There's so much sadness, and it's not just a recent thing. It's been going on for generations, with trauma and PTSD and depression and undiagnosed this and undiagnosed that. And I went through it, from a young age. I had a lot of death in my family, and a girlfriend of mine passed away, and my dad passed away, and other friends with suicide and stuff. So I turned to what most people do, and turn to drugs and alcohol. And you do that, and that's a self-sabotage thing, or escapism, as we know, and you'd probably talk about, trying to hide from what's here by blocking it out, numbing it. And I got very good at it. I was very good at it. So good at it that I started to show signs of it physically and mentally, It was mentally first, but then you would just party more to get rid of it, and then it started to get physically. So I started to get really ill, nothing diagnosed. I mean, just like I was sick all the time, like you're seeing now, so many people are sick every month or every couple of months. I'm only meant to be sick once a year, but I was sick all the time. I was always tired, always down, and always confused. I never fit into anything because if I wasn't doing the drugs and alcohol, I didn't really fit in any other place. So you sort of get confused. Like, am I only meant to be in this one little box? And anyway, so that led to a lot of depression. And that's when actually, I'll tell you how I got into it initially. I think I was very lucky because my parents, I used to have a bad cough, right? Because I used to smoke a lot of dope when I was a kid. So I had a bad cough. So my parents set me up. They took me up, we've got to take you to the doctor. There's something wrong with your cough. So they took me to the doctor. They must have had a chat with the doctor because I've gone in, he's tapped here, he's listened to there, he's gone, oh, mate, we could be burying you in a few years. And I've gone, okay, that's all I need to hear. So straight away, the first thing I got into was green tea, right?
And how did that come about?
I think it was the first thing that was in the house
that
I had access to that I knew was good for you. I didn't know why. I knew it was antioxidants. I didn't really understand it, but I did hear people because health hasn't been this concept of health and hacking the system hasn't really been around, for a long time, only the last 5 or 10 years. So 20 years ago it wasn't, but there was some people speaking about green tea this and green tea that, and So I was like, cool, how many green teas a day do I need to drink to outdo all the bad stuff I've done? And I remember like drinking it all the time. And anyway, so that was how I originally got into it. And then I started working in the supplement industry before, because I was always wanted to be a PT. I've always wanted to be in that health and fitness world. So I applied to supplement jobs, and that's how I got my first taste in the actual industry and the market of supplements. And, I started off with protein and fat burners and all the generic stuff you hear about. And then I very quickly learned how bad that stuff can be for you from my own experience. Went from trying illicit drugs to trying all the legal, healthy ones, but yeah, we all did it. What with that cupboard in the house and with all the supplements we get recommended, So I've got that cupboard as well. It used to be an alcohol cupboard, now it's a supplement cupboard, which is awesome. And this was about 10 years ago. I was in this supplement world, and then I made my way into personal training. And remember, there's always ebbing and flowing of this. I dipped back into the bad lifestyle and dipped back out of it. I've had lots of traumatic things happen over the last 10 years. So every time something happens, I sort of dip back into that horrible world and very quickly realize why I've dipped back out of it. So where I'm at now is I'm trying to step away from just the boring old PT stuff, because I don't think it's about how you look, it's about how you feel. It doesn't matter how you look if you feel like crap. And I often find that if you feel good, you'll start treating yourself better and then look better. So I'm trying to shove this down people's throats now, but in the best possible way. So I can be a bit annoying with it, but I'm that annoying voice reminding you to be happy and telling people how to do it, because it's how often do we get told by therapists or doctors, so it's about being positive. And I remember for every therapist in Sydney, and I was like, I'm trying to be positive, man. Trust me, I'm trying. It is not working.
So I never say that to my clients.
Well, so I was saying the wrong ones, and obviously not those words, maybe unofficial, people trying to give you advice unsolicited. So I found that if you can fix within and not just the soul and the spirit and the thoughts, like if you can fix your hormones and your blood and your detoxing systems, it becomes a hell of a lot easier to think clearly. And a lot of spiritual people always said, no, it's just about willing it. Just will the positivity. Just will the negativity away. And I was like, yeah, I get that. And just manifest your future. I get that and I believe it. But how can you manifest an electric current when your electricity is fried from all the crap that goes in, the heavy metals and the toxins and the mold and all that crap? So once I started cleaning that, my depression went. The dips in my, every once a week I'd have a dip, where I'd be depressed and bedridden and sleep for 2 days. And once I started cleaning everything, it became so much easier to just sort of push that away. The thoughts still come in, but it doesn't react the same way because I'm in control and I don't have the doubt. You wonder, am I right? Am I wrong? Am I sad? Or is this normal? Now it's clear. And I do think a big part of that is in cleaning your body. And I don't see how we can expect to feel happy when we're dirty on the inside. And what I mean by that is even if you eat clean, even if you train, there's stuff in the air. right now we're breathing toxins in, and all
Mm.
you need to do is type into Google what toxins are in the air, and it will give you a list. There's no conspiracy. It's some similar to water and everything, as you know. People do know, but I don't think people give it enough justice. So yeah, so sorry for rambling on, but yes, that's how I'm at now, and never felt better. And since I've started doing this, my clients are, and I hate to say it, but dropping lots of weight because they're starting to look after themselves and
Yeah.
make good decisions around alcohol and food, and without trying to drop weight, they drop weight because they're feeling better and treating themselves better. So I'm loving it. So love
Yeah,
to talk about it.
yeah, and I can really relate to part of what you've just shared too, because from a female's point of view, I was a bodybuilder and I did all that kind of stuff, and I wanted to look a certain way. And when I looked a certain way, what I did to so grateful I looked like that, so grateful I went through that. But I remember always being like, I'm not lean enough, I don't look good enough, I'm not. And I look at the photos back now, I go, Barbs, you were great, mate. Like, for net, good on you. Like, it was a goal for me. It wasn't for anyone else, but I was chasing something I already had. But when I look at, if I was to put on the table what I was eating, it was just a lot of black coffee and pre-workouts and protein powder and oats and like sweet potato or chicken and vegetables. And that was kind of it. But there wasn't balance. And when your hormones shut down, when your period stops and all that kind of stuff, it's just something. And I was pretty maybe anxious and a bit just wired all the time. And I think now when you have that connection within yourself, and if you really have the knowledge to know what feels right for you, because in this, in quotations, health industry, or whatever you want to call it, there's so
Loving it.
there's so many areas that you can look down, and some of them feel good for you and some of them don't feel good for you. And it just means it's not for you, because if you don't like that food or don't like that practice, there's probably like 20, I'm exaggerating, but there's probably
Probably
20 other
not.
things that
Yeah,
you can
there
do.
is. Definitely. Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think you even are exaggerating, to be honest. I think
I do
yeah,
that a lot.
so do I. I'm a Gemini. It's what we do. But yeah, and I really want to touch on that thing with the period that you mentioned, because I've trained clients for competitions, and I train myself for one, and have lots of friends, and that's just, oh, I lost my period from training. Oh yeah, it's normal. This is your coach tells you it's normal, so they go, oh, okay, and it's almost like a little badge of honor. Some
I
females
like
wear like
that.
trained
Yeah.
so hard that I ruined my hormonal cycle. And that's how hard I train. And I do think that's part of this health industry. There's a quotation like it's become this toxic health industry in a lot of ways. I do think we're moving out of it. And I do think it's part of the general population learning curve that we go through stuff as a group together, believe it or not, whether we like to believe that or not. What a group of people think, we tend to believe them because of that sort of cognitive dissonance. If everyone says something, oh, it must be true. So I think it's coming full circle now. I think it's coming full circle where we're going, okay, maybe that's not all right to lose your period. And we're learning why, training too much to look good and eating too little to look good is going to make your body mess up. And then, well, how do we fix it? Cool. Don't do those two things.
Mm. A lot of people have the mentality, I'll do it all now and worry about it later, especially when it comes to training with a trainer or anything to do with weight loss. People want it quickly, but people are like, oh, just get me there and I'll worry about everything else later.
And I hit the nail on the head. And that's why I wanted to leave the industry for so long, because it didn't sit with me. And then I was spending all my time refixing people after they would go and then come back and then go and then come back. And although it's my business, it was hard because, what you do affects you. I'm constantly seeing sad, negative people.
Mm.
And when you're helping them and you put so much effort in and they go, I ruin it all. But then they come back and I want you to fix it again. It weighs on you. So that's why I've had to go, cool, this isn't working. And if the people want that, then they're not my clients, because I'm not fixing people's bodies for the festival on the weekend anymore, Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I love the way that you're thinking, because I think we align pretty well with these topics.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think people may have heard of biohacking. It's something that is around on socials and stuff. So can you share with my listeners so they can get an understanding of what is biohacking?
Cool. So the term biohacking essentially means, and it's what you mentioned at the beginning, like being able to take full control and responsibility of what's going on. And what I mean by that is your internal biology, like being able to measurably affect an outcome and prevent or encourage an outcome from your outside life circumstances, if that makes sense. So the outside world, from what we watch to what we smell, to what we eat, to what we breathe, all affects, your internal biology. So biohacking is the scientific system of being able to identify these circumstances and then completely take control of them, So being insulin sensitive or insulin resistant, so responding to not well to carbs. People eat carbs and they'll store all that fat, and that's a whole bunch of reasons behind that, but it can be stopped. Like people that always use this term, have your cake and eat it too. And I love that term because, people love cakes and treats, but, I can't eat them and I shouldn't eat them. My PT says this, my dietitian says that. Well, that is true, first of all. But if you simply can't stop eating them, there are ways to make sure that that cake doesn't ruin your insulin or your blood sugar levels and then go to your belly as a muffin top, which is a funny play on words. But and that's done naturally as well. This isn't like a chemical compound, it's the opposite. All of this stuff is as natural as can be or as healthy as can be when you talk about biohacking. So yeah, and it basically puts all of the onus back on you, biohacking, like you are in control of this. Your health and your immunity and your weight and your mind, you can control all of it quite easily if you follow the steps that are proven to work. And the steps, in my experience, they're not hard, and there's not even that many. It's just about first believing in it and then to actioning it. But the first step for most people is believing it because they go, oh, there's no way it's that easy. TV said it's not that easy. And again, I want to, without going into conspiracy crap, of course TV says that. They don't want you to know how easy all this stuff is. The TV sells you products. TV sells you the cake. It sells you all the stuff. If they knew that you didn't need their help, then why would they do the advertisement? So anyway, biohacking puts you in control, puts you in complete control, and you don't have to rely on pharmaceuticals and PTs. So don't tell everyone I'll be out of business.
Yeah. And it's hard too. Like when I went to get some supplements the other day, some vitamin C or something, and I stood at the counter, what did I get? And everyone's different. So if I say some supplements, they're not for everyone. You do need to see someone to make sure that you're taking the right stuff. But I think I just topped up on my generic magnesium, vitamin D. I had some like fish oils, a big thing of vitamin C. Anyway, I had a bit of a handful and I put it on the counter, and this lady gave me the massive shit eye. And I was like, I gave her a smile and she just gave me such a dirty look. And I was like, okay. And then I looked into her little basket of what she got. So it was just full of medication. And I instantly knew what it was. It was almost like I need help, but I actually don't realize I need help. And I was the weird one. I was the weirdo at the pharmacy getting the stuff,
Yeah, I do. And this is something we're going to deal with for a long time. So that's why we're doing what we're doing now, to try to not wake people up, because it's not our job, but I guess plant the seed so they hear this now, and then later on when they're at the pharmacy, that the light will go off or the penny will drop and all. And I just want to touch on that generic term you mentioned. Those things you mentioned are the one things we all need to be on. Vitamin D. We're all, even if you get the sun every day, most people are still deficient in it. Vitamin C. High doses of vitamin C can fight almost anything. I mean, they won't even let us know that because like about 5 times the recommended dose will fight everything. And we're all deficient in magnesium. We're all deficient in zinc. All these generic things are the things we simply should be on, because that's what we don't get from food anymore. We used to get the stuff from an apple and a mango and an avocado and a steak. It's no longer in there in the amounts that we need them. So unfortunately, we do have to supplement them. That's part of what we live in. So
yeah, and the right supplements don't just color your urine. So a lot of people, and there are some supplements that you'll buy that will run through you, change your pee color, and that's all they'll do. But if you get the right advice and the right help and buy the right supplements, and sometimes they don't cost a lot of money either. If you shop around, this stuff doesn't have to cost you a lot of money, but it can really change your blood results.
Well, I love this is going to sound cliche, but it doesn't cost money. So wait till they get the bill for not taking this stuff. The hospital bill in 20, 30, 40, 50 years is going to be a lot more expensive than your receipt at the pharmacy for paying for your vitamin C and your fish oils. Your fish oils for your brain, for your heart. What are we seeing a lot of? Like, I think it's 70 million people, or I'm not sure the exact amount, die of cardiovascular disease across the world each year. It's a lot of people. Fish oils, a healthy heart will prevent that, not just fish oils, but
They're
So
good,
we
yeah, sorry, they're good for anxiety and depression too, because most people have side effects or don't feel good because they're lacking in nutrients. So most health side effects or health issues that someone's experiencing is due to, number one, being nutrient deficient in something or multiple things, because they're all linked together. So when people go to a GP and say, oh, I can't even think of something right now, but they're diagnosed with something, or the GP will say, I think you've got this. The questions aren't even asked. What's your diet? What's your sleep? What's your mental? Well, sometimes what's your mental health? Let's look at your blood work. Where are you nutrient dense? Let's fix it with food and stuff first, and lifestyle changes. Then before we just give you the pill for the thing, let's try and treat the cause, and let's dive deeper into that.
Well, there's that famous quote that say that the medical industry pays no attention to nutrition, and the nutrition industry pays no attention to health. So it's really this convoluted thing. Like, they don't ask you what do you eat. They don't ask you if you're upset and sick. They could just simply tell you, well, you shouldn't be eating that, and you go, I mean, the light would go off. Okay, maybe that's why.
Yeah, and do you blame people though? Because God, it's so confusing and full of so much bullshit. And then who do you believe and what do you believe? And that's why you've got to have your own back.
I totally agree with that. And I hate to keep running off these one-liners, but there's another one. I think there's a lot of truth in their stuff. The sayings our grandparents used to say, like there's reasons why these sayings are around, but there's another one that says like we trust our health management with the same people that profit off our sickness. Now, and that's not a conspiracy. It's not, but like, who do we go to when we are sick? The people that give us medicine. So these are the same people that are telling us what's good for you. So I'm not saying there's anything. It's all a business. It's all a business. If you want to make money, you're going to learn the best way to make lots of it, But I do think you're right. It's confusing because sometimes we're not told all of the information. We're not told the wrong information, but we're not told all of it.
Yeah. And it's all like, that's what I mean. We talked about this before we started recording, how PC the world is. And if you know me personally, I have to be careful sometimes because I'm just me. I'm 100% genuine, but I could get into trouble if, I'm not careful. But what I want to share with people is, my train of thought just went. Must have been a long way.
There's so much going on. There's so much to talk about. It's like, where do we start?
Yeah, I think it's more. Anyway, it'll come back to me, guys. It'll come back to me. There you go. I've never
It'll pop up in a second. You go, oh, that's all right.
It's all right. Anyway, we've got plenty of things to talk about. So, it's gonna annoy me now. All right. So let's talk about one of the big things, and this is the thing that you landed on my feed, and I was watching you, and I was like, oh, I need to talk to this guy. Because you can teach me a lot. And that's the thing. There's always new things to learn. Always. And so, okay, guys, this may be something that you don't know or have heard of or you think it's bullshit, but we're going to have a talk about water. So we all know how important water is to hydrate. You need to have your 8 glasses a day or whatever. Yeah. But you crack this on. You start this talking about water and why you're why you're so passionate about it.
Yeah, I am extremely passionate about it. And part of the reason is because I'm fueled by the kickback from some people. But it's such a controversial topic, so it always gets me going a little bit. So I'm a little bit anxious even to bring this up because I do know people sometimes don't want to hear this stuff, and as we said before we were recording, they go, my grandma drank lots of water and she's fine. And it comes back to, cool, well, the water's different now. Water is not the same as it was, and I wish it was. And if it was, then we wouldn't need to bring this topic up. But yeah, so where do you start with water?
Let's start. I just want to. This is a safe space. My listeners are beautiful, and the reason why I do my podcast is it's very real. People jump on to Studio Chat podcast because they want to hear, I don't know, me stuffing up or the realness and just some stuff that is really going to help them. And I'm really genuine. We're here to help people. Exactly. When we talk about this, it may land with you, but it may not straight away. It's totally okay. Let it simmer, sleep on it, think about it. And then you just see what happens.
I totally agree because it's not about taking everything for granted or for gospel, because if we did that with everything, we would just be a mess because everyone's telling you 10 different things, And that's, I think, part of the reason why if you took me for gospel or Barbara for gospel about this topic, then you'd have to take, know what the regulatory system say for gospel too, and then that would just confuse you. So I think for one, it's about trusting your heart and your gut with this product, which are connected with this topic, but then also doing your due diligence and not just dismissing it or agreeing with it and have a look. Like, everything's a Google away.
Yeah.
Things a Google away, but not even, you can dig deeper. There's plenty of other websites where you can look at this stuff and see the proof and the facts and the information, and then make up your own mind. And even then, it'll probably just annoy you. So you'll turn it off, and a bit later on, a penny will drop, and you'll go, you know what? Maybe there's some legs to this. So,
all right. Hey,
okay,
I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off for you. I'll do it, so I'm not the bad person. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So what we're circling and being careful about is we're talking about how shit tap water is for you. And that is, most of my listeners are in New Zealand and Australia, so it'd be the same in both countries, worldwide, whatever. But we're just talking about grabbing a cup, having water, and there's different variations of this bottled water. We're going to talk about all of it. But why is tap water so bad for us?
Yeah, and again, so I'm glad you mentioned it, because now you're the bad guy. But so yeah, so can I. I'm used to it. I thrive off it. But anyway, so the reason why I got talking about this so much again recently, I've been talking about it forever, I was in the sauna a few weeks ago, and there was a couple of old fellas just going on about how good we've got the best drinking water in the world, and I was a bit cheeky, and I was like, okay, well, really? Tell me about that. Anyway, so long story short, we got into a bit of a back and forth, and he was telling me about how, well, they put all the chemicals in, to help you. And I was like, geez, really? That's good. That's good that they do that for us. What chemicals are they? He goes, I don't know, but they're in there. And I go, okay, well, I do know. So I'll tell you what chemicals they are. And he didn't like that. So just off the bat, so you can, first of all, guys, you can find this out by going to Google what chemicals are in Australian drinking water, what chemicals are in New Zealand drinking water. This stuff is free information. It's not only on the water website, EPA, which is the Environmental Protection Regulatory System. It's also on the TGA website, the MyGov website. It's on all of them. Anyway, so just in our drinking water, you've got about 100 chemicals that are allowed to be in there. There's 100. Then there's wiggle room for another 90. So there's 100 that are meant to be in there because they're good for you, or they're allowed to be in there. They're safe in safe amounts, which we'll get to later. But there's wiggle room with another 90 that may be in there. Now, just off the bat, you've got, and then this is the top 10 of the highest amounts. You've got atrazine. Now, I'm not sure, Barbara, you know what that is?
I don't. No.
One of the most prevalent pesticides. And the pesticides, they kill bugs. It's basically what's in Mortein. Now, I like using analogies like this because Mortein is bad for you. We learned that as a kid. Our mum tells you the bug spray, it is bad for you. It kills living things.
It stinks when you spray it. You almost gag on it because it's so bad.
Your soul knows, like, whoa, that's not good, So that's in the water, That's in the water. Not just that, you've got all pharmaceuticals. You've got lead, you've got mercury, you've got copper, you've got the fluoride, which they say is good, which again, we'll get to the point of explaining why it may not be as good as they say. You've got chlorine, you've got arsenic. Arsenic is in Sydney drinking water. Now tell me how much arsenic are we allowed to have? Like just little bits. There's arsenic, there's nitrates, there's boron. There's so many things in the water. I've had to write a list for 50 down just to remember them because there's so many. Now, the thing about this is they go, oh, it's just a small amount. Don't worry. And I go, cool, well, then what measuring system are we using to measure this small amount, And they go, it's just a microdose. Okay. If it was just one glass of water ever, then maybe this microdose of poison wouldn't be as bad. Now, first of all, guys, when I say poison, the list of what I just said is, that's not my opinion. Type in atrazine to Google, it will come up saying toxic chemical. Type in effects of mercury on the human, and it will go toxic, stay away from it. So why I say poison is because they're proven. Yeah. Anyway, so back to the small amount. So there's a small amount in your glass of water. Okay? There's a small amount in your shower. There's a small amount in the water you clean your hands with. There's a small amount in the water you grow your food with. There's a small amount in the water you clean your food with. There's a small amount in the sauna. There's a small amount in the pool. There's a small amount in the clothes you wash your clothes with. And this stuff, mercury doesn't leave your body. Aluminium, lead, copper, it doesn't leave your body. It stays in there. So that's why around 30, 40, we start to show signs of dis-ease because this stuff starts to accumulate. And so where did this small amount come from? Like, it's only a small amount in everything, every day, every week, every month for the rest of your life. Like, it's not a small amount. So maybe if it was one serving, then they can get away with this small amount thing, but it's not. And then sometimes I wonder this innate awareness that people don't drink enough water. In the same way we know stay away bug spray. Are we like scared of tap water because we know, like, our soul's going, don't drink much of that? I think sometimes it's a blessing that people don't drink enough water until they figure this out. Because if they were drinking 3 to 4 liters of tap water a day, we would be dealing with so much more mental health and so much more dis-ease if they were drinking the amount they were meant to drink of tap water. So that's just the chemicals in there. Like this, and there's a whole bunch of stuff we're going to go through that further scares me. So hopefully should inspire some of you guys just to look this stuff up. Let's look it up, go on the websites, type it into Google, and then go further. What does lead do to the body? What does atrazine? Now, do you want to quickly tell you what atrazine does? So this is scary. So they've tested atrazine and glyphosate, which glyphosate is another.
Glyphosate is, yep.
Everyone does now. But amphibians, frogs, reptiles, stuff like that, or reptiles and amphibians, when they're exposed to atrazine and glyphosate from birth, their gender changes from male to a female or a female to a male. Now, what are we seeing a lot of in the last 10, 15 years? Now, and I'm not saying anything is the main reason, but things all add up, the plastics in the water, there's plastic in the water as well. There's so much about that. Do you know the worst thing in the water? This is the number one thing. So estradiol. So estradiol, I'm not sure if your female listeners heard of it. It's the main ingredient of birth control pills. Now, water treatment plants cannot filter this out. They can't filter it out. Now, when in Australia, 70% of females take birth control at one point in their life. 70%. That's the numbers. I looked this up to confirm it before. It used to be more. It's like 200,000 people a year start birth control. So what happens? So we drink water and then we pee into the toilet. The toilet water gets recycled to the water treatment plant and then pumped back into your tap, right? So it's not a big part of it, but some of it, millions of liters a day, and the water treatment plants have admitted that they cannot filter out estradiol. They can't get it out. So what's going on now? Lowering of testosterone, hormones are being messed up, and they're going, what's going on? What is the reason? That's a big reason. Though. You can grab a glass of water and check there is a percentage of estradiol in the water. And, some people might see that as free birth control, but I know a guy definitely.
No, don't listen to that. Don't listen to Jackson's birth control.
No, it's not. Advice. Definitely not. It's definitely not. You shouldn't be on the birth control anyway.
I know. But I don't want anyone listening to this podcast going, oh, yeah, I heard Jackson say that we can drink tap water for birth control. And then someone says, oh, I've got pregnant. I don't want that on me.
No, it's not. Disclaimer.
Okay. One thing before we talk more about this, it's so exciting and so interesting, is without me even knowing, and it happened in New Zealand and it happens here until I switch the animals' water over. But I would notice, so I've had animals for over like 14 years, when in there, and they always use good bowls. I'd always change their water every day. But I would wash their bowl probably once a week, and I'd have to wash the bowl because it would be an orange ring, or it would be really, how do I describe it, greasy and slimy. And that's happened for years. And then when I started to get into this, I went, and it's okay. I'm learning. I'm never going to be perfect. We all are. But then I was like, Barbara, that's probably not a good thing.
No, exactly. Well, so on that topic, and this brings me into something funny about the fluoride in it. So if I'm not sure, a lot of people have seen these little snippets of photos and videos about the water treatment plants or what's in a water pipe. So like when there's construction that have to break through a water pipe, the town water or the city water, they break it open and there's black sludge. It's covered in black sludge, and you see this all over your water filters that connect to your house, When they're fixed by a plumber or they're switched over, like I've got a water filter in mine, I have to change it every 6 months because it is black and smells, it's foul. So that's in the water. And you know what your liver is? It's a water filter. Your kidneys are, they're filters, it's the filter. So if you're not filtering it before it gets in, you're filtering it in there. And why I mentioned the fluoride was, Well, first of all, with fluoride, let's get something straight. There's two types of
See?
fluoride. Yeah,
Which
fluoride.
teeth?
Well, yeah, so that's what they say, and they're not wrong, but let's just clear up. There's two types of fluoride. There's a natural recurring one, and then there's a man-made one. So the arguments of the dentist, oh, no, no, no. Fluoride's natural, but is the one you're using natural? Is the one in the water natural? And it never is. So the fluoride that we have in our water isn't is the man-made version. Now, again, a tiny dose once a year is not wrong, nothing wrong with it. But it's in your toothpaste. You drink it every day. It's everywhere. And anyway, so the main reason a lot of people don't like the fluoride is because, well, for one, improved in autopsies when someone is dissected to figure out how they died and they do studies on the organs and stuff, your pineal gland is covered, calcified in fluoride, completely calcified, and it's covered like crystallized fluoride because the fluoride, it crosses your blood-brain barrier, right? So it's able to get to organs, and it always it's attracted to here because your pineal gland is magnetic. Anyway, so what's the main thing that fluoride's meant to do is it lowers your ability to reason. It's not going to kill you. It's not going to give you cancer. It's not going to do that. The other stuff in there does that. But what the fluoride does is it lowers your decision-making capabilities. Now, type into fluoride, type into Google, what does large amounts of fluoride do to the human brain? It'll tell you straight away. It lowers your reasoning ability, can lower IQ. And this is, but they'll go, but don't worry. There's only a small amount in your water. We know that is true in some convoluted sense of the term, but it's not when you drink it all day for 100 years, which is how long we would like to live healthily. But so the reason why I say the fluoride again is we've seen these photos of the black sludge in filters and we know this, but why don't we do anything about it? Because the fluoride is stopping your ability to make sense of it. Oh, black sludge in the filters. Oh, I hope that's not going to do anything. But maybe if we didn't have this chemical compound disrupting our ability to make decisions, maybe we wouldn't just dismiss this stuff, And again, it's up to people just to look it up. What does fluoride do in large amounts to the brain? And then go, oh, well, I do have actually difficulty making my mind up sometimes and figuring things out. And anyway, so that's the fluoride. But there's lots more about that anyway. Now, natural occurring fluoride, good for you. Man-made fluoride, not good for you.
Can I ask a question that I think a lot of people will be possibly listening to this going, I think they'd want me to ask it. Can you just boil it?
I get asked this a lot. Listen to this. So my grandma used to say that because, our grandparents went through giardia. Remember giardia was in the water and they were telling you to boil the water to kill it. Well, what does boiling water do? It evaporates the water. So let's just say you get a kettle and you fill the kettle with water, right? Tap water. And then you boil it once, right? And some of the water goes. None of the fluoride goes. So let's just say there was a liter in that kettle and you boiled it. Now there's 800 mils. Well, the amount of fluoride is now more concentrated to the amount of water in there. So the fluoride does nothing to the fluoride, no, and nothing at all. So let's just say you reboil a kettle 4 or 5 times, which some people do. You keep boiling it and the steam evaporates. So the amount of water in that kettle gets less and less and less, but the fluoride amount stays the same. So let's say you fill a liter kettle and you boil it 5 times over 3 days. There's now 500 mils in there or less. Obviously, you're pouring some out, but the concentrated amount of fluoride does not change. No, you can't boil out that. You can boil out bacteria, but, they're there.
What about you said 100 chemicals and then maybe another 90. So what about the 190 chemicals roughly that are in water? Could that boil some of them out?
Well, their story is that they put the chemicals in there to kill the bacteria. So the chemicals in there are heavy metals and antibiotics and pharmaceuticals and stuff like that, and plastics. So plastics are petrochemicals. So what does melting plastic do? It just melts it more, dilutes it more. So when they on the websites of the water regulatory systems, they say that we put like the guy in the sauna. Don't worry, they put the chemicals in there to kill the bacteria. So there shouldn't be any bacteria in there at all because they've put 100 chemicals in there to kill the bacteria. Same reason they put chlorine in a pool to kill the bacteria. There's chlorine in our drinking water. You can't drink pool water and you can drink tap water. So the bacteria, it should be dead from the atrazine and the glyphosate and the arsenic. Like nothing can live in arsenic. So that stuff kills the bacteria, but you can't burn away those man-made chemicals, no. But our organs are designed to filter out a small amount of this stuff, because volcanoes release mercury and aluminium, and it's in the soil already. So we're designed by evolution to filter out some of this stuff, but not when it's coming at you from every angle, in the air, in the water, in the food, in the medicine, and
The lifestyle, yeah.
yeah. So boiling it, no, boiling it won't get out the chemicals or the heavy metals. It'll concentrate compared to the amount of water in there.
Okay, so if anyone's listening to this, what changes can people make, and can we look at the budget, especially now with the climate? Can we look at like the top tier option, and then can we look at a budget version as well to help people out?
Well, yeah, definitely. So I deal with this every day, and I was roped into the top tier version, so I do understand how annoying it can be on the back pocket. But before we do that, I will mention that there's plenty of cheap options. Like you can, first of all, people buy bottled water all the time, right? And that's not anything. I don't drink tap water. I drink bottled water. I know there's crap in the water, so I get bottled. Now, for anyone following this and wants to know the proof, now there is now countless evidence and data backed around how bottled water is actually sometimes worse. 90% of bottled waters have more crap in them than the tap water. Now, I've got plenty of documentaries about this, plenty of EPA news reports. ABC Net in Australia have done a report on it. The bottled water is actually worse. Plenty of videos of people testing the oxidative effect of the water, which is the metals in there. But so there are some bottled waters that you can use. So, there are some you can use. One called Pura, the cask of water. A lot of people always talk about that.
Yeah.
And that's $5 for 5 liters. But the thing is that water doesn't have everything you need in it. So I'll get to that. I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
So with the water, first of all, if you're drinking the right amount that you're meant to drink, which we all know is roughly 3 liters. So to buy a liter of, say, alkaline or filtered water, it's $2 to $4. So that's 1 liter, depending on where you get it. In Sydney, Bondi it is anyway. So if you need 3 liters a day, that's anywhere from $6 to $10. Okay. Now $10 times 7 a week, so $70 a week. Times that by 52 weeks, it's about $3,500 a year. So there is no water machine that costs that much. So even if you were to get the top tier, most expensive water machine there is, it is still not as expensive as buying bottled water every day. It's nowhere near it. So that's what I always say to people that can't justify spending the money. And all these companies that sell the top tier water, you can pay it off. I paid mine off $50 a fortnight, $25 a week. And I was spending $15 a day on alkaline water. So it's way cheap, and I paid it off, and I've never had to buy bottled water again, ever. And I haven't been sick in 3 years. And I'll get to what that means later on, because some water is better than others. But so you can get water machines of reverse osmosis, which some people say isn't good, but there's nothing wrong with it. You can get normal alkalized filtering systems anywhere from around $300 to $3,000. But in saying that, there's lots of good charcoal filters that you can buy a jug of, which are about $100. The only issue with those jug filters are that you've got to keep refilling it. You've got to keep refilling these jugs. They only hold a liter maximum, and they take a while to.
Is it the brand Brita or something?
Everyone says that. So Brita, 10 years ago, no. But they've caught on to the fact that we now know more. So there's good Brita filters that have multiple filtering system in them, activated charcoal, some other rock. So you can use Brita, that's fine.
I'm just thinking of mum and dad with the kids at home, and they're listening to this podcast and like, we just want to try something out. We want to get it now and just see if it makes a difference in our life.
You can do that now, exactly. So I will touch on the reason why I don't always think that it's the best option is because if people are implementing this new thing in their life, filtered water, it becomes a bit annoying. Like you want to sip of water, you want to fill up the kettle or fill up the pot to cook pasta, and you've got to sit there with the tap on, and you've got to wait 10 minutes for it to drip because it comes down one drop at a time through the filter. So they end up going, piss off. I don't care. I need to feed the kids now, not in an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So sometimes why I reckon the jugs, they work fine, but they're not efficient in getting you enough water. Say you, your husband, 3 kids, a dog, you need 20 liters a day for everyone, 3, 6, 9, 12, plus your cooking, your oils and your pasta or whatever. But yeah, so apart from that, you can get a pretty good system built into your house from about $500. Like a plumber will come and put it into your sink for $500, and that's a reverse osmosis one. Now, the thing about reverse osmosis is it's the same water as those Pura boxes. Yep. So it has nothing in it. And they stand by that. There is nothing in this water at all. No chemicals, no fluoride, but also no minerals. And
Yeah.
water needs to be mineralized, otherwise there's no point in drinking it. So the thing about reverse osmosis, it will strip all the bad stuff, but it will also strip all the good stuff. So, and then this is really important. So when you drink stripped water, when you drink empty water, water has a memory. It likes to bind to things that it touches. So that's why it's even worse to drink Sydney tap water, because it's bound to copper pipes and rust and plastics in the pipes. But so if you drink reverse osmosis water that's stripped, you're going to drink it and it's going to strip you of your nutrients, and then you're going to pee all of your nutrients out. So what you have to do is add your nutrients. Now I've got something here called Cell Food. Now it's called Cell Food. And you can get this from it's in reverse, sorry.
No, I can read it. So it's about CELL food.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can get this for $30. And this has lasted me about 3 months already, because you only need a few drops. Now, that adds all the minerals back in. It adds all the minerals you need. So you just put a few drops in your Brita filter, 10 drops in the Brita filter, 1 drop or 2 drops per glass. And that puts all the minerals back in. So what that's going to do is when you drink it, it won't strip you of your minerals. It'll add them to you. Now, if people don't believe that, they just need to remember that old saying is don't drink too much water. And if you drink too much water, it strips all your nutrients. We know that if you flood your body, it dilutes all of your nutrients. So that's not a lot of water. That's any tap water will do that. So that's why you can't eat it with food, because it'll strip the nutrients of the food and you'll pass it with your urine.
Yeah. Can I just also jump in there too? Because I know if people aren't familiar, I think this brand is in New Zealand too, because 2 weeks before I stepped on stage, I had to have this type of water. It was the only water I was allowed to drink.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah. So it's spelled Pureau, and that's the water that you can see at Woolies or Coles. And New Zealand has something. Let me know if you're in New Zealand, you need help, because I'll be able to tell you which one. Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but that's the one that you can buy too, and add the Cell Food drops into it, and then that'll balance it out. Okay.
And that makes this the cheapest option to do now. It's $5 for 5 liters. Add a few drops, which is $30 for 6 months worth.
Where do you get those drops from?
So I get mine from my local guru on Bronte Road in Bondi, and the shop's called Bondi Discount Vitamins. Now the good thing about this shop is everyone in there is a biophysicist, bio something. Like they have their own naturopath studio clinics. So they're not just salesmen behind a counter. They work 2 or 3 days each, and they're like holistic healers that also happen to work in this shop. 1, so they can meet clients, but 2, because these guys are really passionate. But I have all my clients that all over Australia that will order from these guys, and they'll spend half an hour with you on the phone. They won't just sell. They go, "Oh, why do you want this?" And "Oh, I'm glad you're using it." They'll tell you why it's good and ask you more questions. They're really good, and it's really cheap. But that's what makes
a generic brand that you can just Google and buy on Google.
Definitely. So this brand is called Cell Food Australia. Cell Food Australia, and the product's called Cell Food.
Okay, I'll check it out and have a look. Yeah.
And there's other versions of stuff like this. It's just a full mineral complex, and this one also does the other thing to water, which is another funky thing which people just don't know. It gives it its charge. So this used to be called cell charge, right? So water is meant to have a frequency. And I think a lot of people understand energetic frequencies. We have a frequency. The air does. Everything does. A rock does. Crystals have frequencies, sort of normal rocks. But water is meant to have a certain frequency, which is meant to charge you, same way the earth does when you ground, same way the sun does, same way the ocean does. It's meant to charge you. So this Cell Food actually adds the charge back to the water. And I've done studies with this specific product that like 20 or 30 drops in a glass with a light bulb can turn the light bulb on. Now, I know it sounds crazy. So I know so some people might be scared off by that, but we're an electric being and we have something like enough charge in us to charge a car battery, but it's dormant. But this you need charged water basically to be a thriving human.
But isn't it interesting hearing some of this new information? It may scare a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it does.
It doesn't scare them drinking out of the shitty black pipes with all the crap in it. So it's so interesting that I want you guys just to sit with it and just and I know that your first reaction will be like, this is bullshit. If it was really unhealthy, we wouldn't be able to do it. We live in Australia and New Zealand are like, clean countries. There's nothing wrong with it. It's fine. And that's a normal reaction, I think, to have from it.
I had that reaction for many years, up until 5 or so years ago, when I realized it's a big business. And again, I don't say that in a bad way. Once I appreciated that it's all business, it started to make sense how some things get overlooked, or convoluted, and they're not trying to hurt you. They're not trying to make us sick, but there has been steps that have been skipped and made easier for the systems to work how they work. They've got to feed, 27, however many million people in Australia. They've got to service all of us. It's not as easy as we thought it is. So there's corners that have been cut. Now, another one-liner for you. The concept that the government has it all covered, the concept that the government doesn't have it all covered is too hard for us to believe, or too scary for us to believe, so we just choose not to. So the idea that they are not on top of everything, it's too scary. So we go, no, that couldn't be true. And I understand that. I do understand that, but it's a simple Google away, a Google away to find out what these chemicals are and then what they do to the body. And then if you think that what they're doing to the body isn't bad, then there you go. It doesn't matter. And if you do think that it's bad, then you can change it.
Yeah. So what do you drink your water out of every day? I'd love to know.
A
glass bottle. Okay.
Yeah, so plastic does the same thing. So plastic doesn't need to be heated to leach into bottles, to water. The BPA, which a lot of people have heard of now, that's what plastics are made of, and there's different scales of it. But all the water bottles we drink, it's the worst type of BPA, And these water bottles, Mount Franklin or whatever, they sit in hot containers for months, sitting in a hot container, bouncing around on a truck or bouncing around on a boat, getting knocked around in hot temperatures before we ever get to them. So, these are hot, cold, so the water breaks away. So part of the big thing in the water is the plastic. It's one of the main things that's in there. And again, that goes with this hormone thing going on, because plastic is a petrochemical which boosts our estrogen and lowers our testosterone.
So a lot of people are drinking out of those Frank Green drink bottles or any kind of drink bottles that are PBA free. Are they good?
Yeah. So they will say on the bottle that's really popular now, BPA free water plastic. And although there's no evidence to say there's nothing wrong with it, in my mind, plastic's plastic. And you can get in Sydney, probably the only cheap thing in Sydney or Bondi, you can get glass water bottles from Kmart for $1. So there's 1.5 litre glass water bottles with a pot lid. They cost $1. So once you've got your pure water cask or your reverse osmosis or your Kangen water machine or whatever, all you need is one glass bottle. You never need to worry about any of this stuff ever again. Now, I always say, if you can do it cheaply, and a lot of people say it's good for you, then what's the point of not trying this? Like, you're going to save money from water bottles. You're going to save lots of money from having to buy water bottles again. And even if this stuff does have legs, like if it could be bad for you, you don't need to worry because you're not doing it. But what's the risk of not doing it? If it is true, if the percentage of chance that the stuff could be true and we aren't crazy, then you're going to be susceptible to this stuff if you don't drink out of a glass bottle with a filter.
So do you take your Kmart bottle to the gym with you?
I have to buy one every few weeks because I've dropped them, or that's hopefully not as clumsy as me, but yeah, I take it everywhere with me. It's always with me, no matter what, everywhere with me. And it's good because the 1 litre one, I know I need to drink 3 of them a day, and I'm good. One in the morning before 12, one from around 12 to 3, and then one from 3 to 6. If that makes sense.
Look at that. Thank you for sharing all that with us so far. It's been amazing.
You can see, like, I'm sweating, like my heart is pumping, like this stuff. It's hard for me to talk about because I do know a lot of people. I can hear people. I can mind read, by the way, so I can hear people now going, "Who is this guy, bro? Why did you get this crazy guy on your podcast? Don't get him on again." But so I know there's kickback, but I think there's enough evidence now for us to at least make up our own mind and also save some money on water bottles by getting a cheap filter.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I want to be doable as well for anyone just listening to it, wanting to change that one thing in their life. So we've got a bit of time left. What did you want to talk about I actually personally would love to quickly talk about meat and eggs.
Oh, yes.
And we'll come back. We'll do another podcast, but I just wanted to highlight this to people because I didn't know, and I probably didn't care up to a certain point. But when I was definitely training for my comps and stuff, I ate so much chicken breast. And then when I did my nutrition studies and found out what was in that, like I love meat, we'll always love meat, right? It's might love it, we'll always love it. But when I found out what was in that meat, like it made me feel physically sick. And then when I understood that you know how a lot of people, I see them at the supermarket, they buy eggs that are cage-free eggs or free-range eggs and think that they're helping the animals out and that's really good for them. And then when I found out what those farms feed the chickens, I was like, it has to be all like, so that's what I'd love for us just to really just quickly dip our toe into this today.
Yeah, so we'll go more quickly because again, this is another 2 hour podcast in itself. But first of all, I will just quickly say that this is not about veganism or animal based because that's another topic I don't even think needs to be discussed anymore. Because if you believe this stuff, you believe it, or if you don't believe it, you don't have to. Not telling anyone to eat meat or eggs. Definitely not doing that. But if you are eating meat and you are eating eggs and you've experienced amazing benefit energetically and immune based, hormonal based of that stuff. I think it's just important to understand why some meat and the eating of it has such a bad name, apart from the horrible animal industry, the mass production and horrible circumstances, the cage-free eggs. It's important to know that a lot of the reason why people have this meat intolerance, and I hear this from a lot of female clients, they go, oh, meat makes me feel yuck. And I go, just out of curiosity, where'd you get your meat? And I go, oh, Coles? Oh, yeah, Coles meat, Coles chicken will make you feel yuck. First of all, it's aged. It's aged like weeks and weeks before it's got to you, and not in a cool room. It's aged already, and to make it the color, it's bleached. So it's not meant to look the pink. It's not meant to look like that. They bleach it to make it look a certain way. But the cows, if they're not grass fed, and that's another trick in itself, because in the same way cage free is a bit of a trick, grass fed is as well. So if it's truly grass fed, it has to say grass fed and grass finished. Because if it just says grass-fed, that means as a baby it was raised on grass, and then they started feeding it corn and soy. Now, so it started on grass, but then it moved to grain. Now, grain, where do you go with that, Jeez? So grain is an omega-6, and these guys aren't growing the stuff organically. It's a genetically modified grain to mass produce it to feed the cows, to feed the world, So genetically modified grain is high in omega-6. Now, that's an inflammatory omega. Now, we all know that diseases and illness is an inflammatory byproduct of whatever system that's involved with. Now, humans, we need a healthy dose of omega-3, fish oils, from omega-6, but the Western diet is like 10 times the amount of omega-6, even if you don't know. But you know why? Because the chicken, all it eats is grain, corn, and soy. And they are inflammatory omega-6s that make you hold water, make you inflamed, make you bloated, make you sick, and lower your immunity. Now, this cage-free thing just means they're not in a tight cage, but they're still in a small factory room with 100,000 other chickens with no room to move at all. They're like this. So cage-free means the chickens are shoulder to shoulder like this. They can't even move. And then, of course, they start getting sick because they have no room to move. They're not seeing the sunlight. So then to get them healthy, they have to pump them full of antibiotics to keep the chickens healthy, and then we eat them. So then we get pumped full of these antibiotics. Now, a small amount of antibiotics is good. So good for you. It saves the world a long time ago. But all day, every day, from all the food you eat, and then on top of the antibiotics you take, it starts to ruin your gut lining. Yeah, it may fight a disease, but it completely shreds your gut lining and your good bacteria apart. And that there's so many links now to people that are going through autoimmune stuff and them having lots of antibiotics as a kid. It gives you something called candida. I'm not sure if you've heard about, but candida can be a precursor to cancers and other stuff like that. Now, there's nothing wrong with eating chicken if you can get it pasture raised, if it was ruminant, if it roamed in a free open land eating grass and bugs. Now, that type of chicken is good for you, but it is very, very hard to find, which is why a lot of people, biohackers now say it's about grass-fed beef, because it's easy to find grass-fed beef now. Most cows, there's a whole industry around grass-fed and grass-finished roaming cows, right? So It's just important to know that if you're going to be eating meat, there is very big difference of bad meat and good meat. Bad meat will make you sick and further encourage this vegan trend of getting sick from animals. And good meat will do the opposite. There's so many stories. There's thousands of stories of people fixing hormonal and autoimmune problems from going on an animal-based diet. Now, on that topic, animal-based diet is not carnivore. Carnivore diet is not good. It's not good for you. Same way, I won't go into it. I don't want to make enemies. The animal-based diet has fruit in it. It has avocados, it has cucumbers. So they're both fruit, by the way. All the other fruit, and has bone broth, it has bone marrow, and it has so many other great things. Bone broth, again, it's full of collagen. The only way to heal your gut and heal wounds is collagen. And as we turn 30, then 40, then 50, we lose 10% of our collagen production every 10 years. So animal-based diet, great, but you got to do it right, and you've got to get it from the right place. You've got to be grass-fed, if you can, organic, if not, chemical-free.
Yeah.
And same with the eggs. Your eggs don't eat as good as the chicken. No point eating an egg from a chicken that was sick, because that egg's going to be concentrated sick chicken.
Yeah, and that's what freaked me out a bit too when I did my studies. It was interesting because it makes sense. The farmers get more money if the animals are bigger and rounder and fatter. So they inject the animals sometimes with all sorts of stuff. And I have heard stories of them feeding candy to the animals for them to be fatter.
Well, on that topic, think about this. So what do they feed chickens and cows to fatten them up? Grains, corn and grain. So what's that? Cereal. Now, what are we told to eat as a healthy, fit diet? Cereal and oats, grains. So we feed grains and cereal-based foods to cows and chickens to fatten them up.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We feed to fatten them up so we can eat bigger animals. But then we eat them to be lean and healthy. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. The whole cereal market, Wheat Bix and Cheerios, and all grains and wheats. And, we feed that stuff to fatten up animals, but we think it's healthy for us to eat. I've never heard someone go, what food can I eat that's going to fatten me up the most? Not at all. Even though it's tasty, we want to eat tasty food. We also don't want to be fat from it. It's just a byproduct, unfortunately, of eating tasty food sometimes. So I think that's important to know with the grains and grain-based food, wheat-based food, bread. Yeah, which I'm still addicted to, by the way. So I get it. It's hard to cut this stuff out, but
organic. So organic eggs and organic meat too is like the best, because then it's not filled with stuff. And then there's a thing called the Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen. If you just Google that'll actually give you a list of vegetables and fruits that you don't really need to buy organic, and then ones that you are best to buy organic, because there are some fruits and vegetables, when you wash them, the pesticides and stuff, if you soak them, there's things you soak them in apple cider vinegar and all that stuff, it still doesn't take the pesticides away because it's sunken into the vegetable.
Yeah. The way the fruit grew was with it, so it soaked it up as it was growing. The number one at the moment is strawberries. The number one. There's the number one on the Dirty Dozen to avoid unless it's organic. And as a rule of thumb, something that I learned from a guru in this field is that the thicker the skin, the safer it is. So watermelons, mangoes, pineapples, the thicker the skin of the fruit, the safer it is. You don't need to buy them organic, just give them a wash.
Yeah, that makes sense. Gosh, there's a few things. I mean, we could talk all day, but I think that's without overwhelming everyone. I'm just going to see what else I've got on my list here for us to talk about. Is there anything else that you want to share before we
well, maybe just quickly on that organic topic, because it is a trick that I fell into a long time ago. You can still get organic bad things, Organic corn is still going to do, I don't like to use that example, but organic grains are still going to do the same thing as unorganic grains. They're still high, they're still omega-6s. So what I mean by that is, with the meat, organic meat is not the same as grass-fed. So organic meat can still, if it doesn't say grass-fed on it still spent its whole life eating inflammatory omega-6. So it was organic inflammatory omega-6, but it's still going to inflame your body. So same way with eggs. So I've been eating organic eggs for a long time, but I've only recently realized that they weren't pasture raised. They might say free range, and free range in Australia just means they have access to 12 feet of sunlight for 3 hours a day. Doesn't mean they're not out in the paddocks. Bodhi is just barking at me.
So they have to be pasteurized. the eggs. Is that what you're saying?
Pasteurized means they live outdoors and there's only a small amount of hens or chickens per square meter, only a small amount, and they constantly have access to sunlight whenever they want. They can just go outside. But free range means they have it for 3 hours a day, and it's only about, so a big factory, right, will have one door, like this door behind me, with a fence out that door of 12 feet. And the chickens go out one by one to get a little bit of sunlight, then back inside. So organic free-range chicken eggs means nothing if it has to be, so pasture-raised, non-organic is better than organic free-range. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really important to know.
Yeah. So it's just, So sometimes things have got the label organic, doesn't necessarily mean that it's great either.
And in the other way, so the organic stamp costs $100,000 a year, right? So not all companies can afford that. So some organic is not as good, but also some organic is not as good, but some unorganic is good. So people say organic food is too expensive, that's because it costs them $100,000 a year to get the stamp, right? So some small farmers or small grocery shops, they have chemical free. So they couldn't afford the organic stamp, but they can guarantee there's been no chemicals used in its growing or anything. It's got a stamp of chemical free. So that just means they couldn't afford the $100,000 per year stamp, you know? So people that can't afford organic, it's called, type in chemical-free fruit in my suburb, chemical-free meat in my suburb, and there'll always be an option that will deliver to you or within a 20-minute drive that's much cheaper than organic and just as good.
Oh, let me write that down. So chemical-free
options they're just as good and sometimes better. So like organic free-range eggs just mean that they still like crap, or they're not healthy, but you can get chemical-free pasture eggs that they're not organic, but they're going to be much better.
I'm just writing that down. Excellent. Excellent. So if anyone wants to reach out to you and work with you or just have a chat about what we've spoken about today, how can people get hold of you?
Also, there's two ways. I've got an Instagram. It's called bio_hack_Jack, biohack Jack. But I'm also, my email address is info@bodiesbyjax.com.au. That is BODIESBYJAX. So bodiesbyjax.com.au. But I'm sure I'll reach out to you and you can pass them on. So I'll be happy to help anyone. I disseminate this. I can't stop talking about this stuff. So if anyone just wants to chat or to hear it again, I'm more than happy to do that, obviously free of charge, just to help anyone.
Yeah, well, this has just been a really good intro for us. We can do another one and dive deeper into some, different topics. But I think these were the two most important ones, was the water and just the generic meat and eggs that a lot of people I find just don't have the knowledge to make the decision.
Yeah, and it's sad, but it's good that we're doing this. So.
Yeah. Is there have you got any one-liner to share with us, or one hot tip that you want to share?
I've used them all. They've all been used. But, I'll think of some more for next time.
I was like, do you have a massive list somewhere that you're just pulling these out and doing?
Well, you remember the stuff that makes sense to you. So this stuff, you pull them out. And I know, Bodie, 1 second. My dog's annoying me now. No, so I'll think of some for next time, though. Don't worry. I know, mate.
No, that's good. Thank you for joining me on my 50th episode. It's a bit of a special episode. And it's just, we'll definitely jump on. But I've learned a lot too. So thank you for speaking your truth and just keep pushing forward to actually help people, for people to feel better about themselves.
That's all this is about, isn't it? If there wasn't a reason behind it, we wouldn't be doing it. So I'm glad some people appreciate it.
Yeah, so thank you, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Barbara. Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and it has inspired you on your self-care journey. Please feel free to share this with a friend and subscribe over on Apple Podcast. I really love hearing your feedback, so guys, please feel free to write a review on Apple and let me know which part of this episode resonated with you the most. To fall in love with yourself is the first secret to happiness. To find out a bit more about Self-Care Studio or the Studio Chat podcast, head over to my Instagram page, self_care_studio, or on my website, selfcarebybarbarathomson.com.au. Really look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Look after you. And I'll catch you soon. Bye.